that make you feel? Because when I spoke to you, gosh, 3-4 weeks ago now, maybe, when that ITV drama first came out, we sat here with a bit of renewed hope, didn't we? Let's face it. You know, this could be the moment that finally, after decades of you trying to get redress and justice, this could be the moment. How do you feel after today?
Feel shattered. It's taking long. I mean, the GLO people, 555 people, it's taken over 2 months to get their law into. So this one, getting compensation more, is going to take even longer. Yeah. Because they're having a look at every single claim with a pen, needle, you know, in a haystack. Yeah.
There are hundreds of you, and Adele, to make things more complicated, there are 3 different compensation schemes. Vijay is in the overturned conviction group, but just talk us through that, because that seems to be quite a complicated process.
Yeah, there are 3 schemes, as you say. There's the GLO scheme that Vijay was talking about. That's the group litigation order that involves the original 555 former sub-postmasters. What's happened with that is it's actually sounds like it's moved fairly quickly recently in comparison. It's a top-up scheme by the Department for Business, effectively, but it includes a lump sum of £75,000. Then you've got the HSS scheme, which is the Hoirzon shortfall scheme. That's for people who were not convicted of any crimes with relation to the Hoirzon, the post office scandal. I think it's over 2,400 have made claims, and agreements have been made with just over 2,000 of them. So a lot of that group have been compensated. Now, another question, or whether or not, you know, they've been compensated what they believe to be right. And then there's the largest group outstanding, which is those who are still waiting for their convictions to be overturned, and they can't be compensated until those convictions are overturned. And the fastest way that can happen is through legislation, and that's why the government is pushing through that legislation.
Vijay, you know, that's a lot of people to be compensated. You're one of them. Where are you in your process? Have you had any money? What communication have you had to say that?
The only money I did receive was an entry payment beginning of last year, which we mentioned last time, and that's the same amount I've got. Nothing else. Even no letters or nothing like that, even from post office or the government.
You're just learning everything through the media and through the evidence that's being given
the evidence
in front of MPs.
And my barristers are quite happy to carry on with it.
Well, it's interesting, wasn't it? One of the lawyers who was before the committee today was saying, do you know what, it would help this process greatly if the post office were actually taken out of it, and all of their lawyers, because it's just complicating things and slowing things down. Vijay, give us a snapshot of what life is like for you, personally, financially, while this rumbles on.
Personally, stressful, really stressful, going through the whole process of looking at this like it happened yesterday. And it's just getting too much now, trying to understand all this process, get rid of these post office people, the lawyers they've got, give it to an independent body to have a look at it, and it might speed up the process of getting compensation.
I know when we spoke last time, I discussed with 2 other sub-postmasters here. You're all here saying, you know, look, in essence, the money does matter, but how can you put a price on what we've been through? But on practical terms, financially, how are you doing? Because your livelihood was wiped out. The effects afterwards, of course, are costly, and you know nobody likes to talk about money, but you know that's what's at stake.
Financially, I'm working at the moment as we speak. Financially, we suffice, if you say. But it's still hard at the moment because you've got a new mortgage, you've got other things to pay out, and surviving it is difficult, but we're managing with the family, with the support of all the family.
But you could do with that money now, right?
Yeah.
Adele, what's the next step? What's happening from this point on after
well,
the debacle of today?
I was speaking to one of the former sub-postmasters outside the hearing afterwards, and he was quite stunned. And we both said, how many more select committees do you think there will be between now and the summer, when the legislation's supposed to be coming in and when one of the deadlines that's been mentioned for compensation? Probably many, many more. I think what's important to say as well, though, is that this argument between, it's an argument between Henry Staunton and Nick Reed, effectively now, was the business secretary. A lot of really important things that were said in the hearing today have kind of been missed, and it's around compensation. The whole point of the Select Committee hearing was about an update over a compensation or financial redress, as Alan Bates wants it called, quite rightly, and what's gone wrong. And there's loads of things, really. Some of the main things they spoke about was the fact that the Post Office only have 8 lawyers processing applications, and if you compare that to just one of the law firms, Freeth's, they've got 23, and there's several law firms.
Vijay, you know, that's tough to take, right?
Yeah, and the process that you have to go through for an application as well, it's described as too legalistic, at times offensive for people filling it in. It's described as exhausting and traumatising for people filling it in. If you are offered something and you reject it, it can take at least 6 months for it then to even come to a new offer. So the timescales on it, unless they put more resources in and streamline it, I don't see how anything will change, unfortunately, for the sub-postmasters. There are things that they want to see, like the chair of the Select Committee, Liam Byrne, said today that he wants to see. One of the things that's been called for is for unfair settlements payouts, for them to be re-looked at, because there's a lot of people who were not represented legally. 2,000 people. Cases they weren't represented legally, and also they want legal deadline payout on payouts as well. And Liam Byrne wants that to be included in the legislation that's coming up as an amendment. I mean, there's always caveats to this, because that would work as long as the original offers are appropriate. Yeah. And a lot of people don't think that they are.
It just needs to get moving, doesn't it? As Alan Bates said today, get on and pay people. It's gone on far too long. Vijay, thank you. You always come in here with a smile on your face. And we're very grateful that you come on to talk about something that, you know, you're still feeling to this day.
You still have to be happy.
Yeah, good. I'm so pleased with that, Vijay. We'll keep in touch, OK?
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Right, Adele, thank you as well. Oh, well, the Post Office scandal, sure to feature in tomorrow's papers. Of course, we'll have our extended press preview for you and our news review from 10:30 tonight with tonight's news and tomorrow's headlines. Joining us, journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman and PR consultant Alex Dean. Now, next tonight, another potential headache for the Prime Minister. The former Conservative MP, Scott Benton, has been suspended from the Commons for 35 days, which could lead to yet another by-election for Rishi Sunak to deal with. Let's cross to our chief political correspondent, John Craig, to tell us more. John, bring us up to speed.
Well, the reason there could be another by-election is because the suspension approved by the House of Commons this evening, on the nod, there wasn't a vote, was 35 days, and a suspension of more than 10 days triggers a recall petition. That was the procedure which led to the ousting of Peter Bone in Wellingborough a few weeks back. So, a recall petition, 6 weeks that takes, and it only needs 10% of the electors in the constituency, in this case Blackpool South, to vote to oust Mr Benton, and he will be kicked out, and there will be a by-election, probably in May if that goes ahead. Now, Mr Benton was caught in a sting by the Times newspaper, boasting about lobbying on behalf of gambling interests, and really in quite a brazen way. There was an inquiry, he was found guilty of breaking lobbying rules. He appealed last week, that appeal was thrown out, and so we are on course for yet another by-election this year. We had 2 a couple of weeks ago. There's another one this week in Rochdale on Thursday. And Blackpool South is a marginal seat and a really tricky one for the Tories. You think back to all the recent by-elections, Labour have overturned some enormous Tory majorities of over 20,000. Well, Blackpool South, majority is only 3,690. It's a seat the Tories held from 45 to 97. Labour had it in the Blair and Brown years. Mr Benton won it in 2019. He's only been there a few years. Now, the Labour were second. They would hope to win this seat. Interestingly, Brexit Party, the forerunner of the Reform UK Party now, they were third. It's a big pro-Brexit, a big pro-Leave constituency, 68%. So you can expect a strong Reform UK showing there, which is more bad news for the Tories. Labour will be looking forward to this by-election, hoping yet another scalp. The Tories will be looking forward to this with dread because it's a small majority and all the signs are they'll probably lose the by-election.
John, thank you. John Craig with the latest from Westminster. Right, let's get some more on breaking news this evening. And Thomas Kingston, the son-in-law of the Prince and Princess Michael of Kent, has died. It comes as the Prince of Wales pulled out of a special event today, his godfather's funeral, because of what Kensington Palace described as a personal matter. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills joins me now. Rhiannon, sad news coming earlier on today, but we are told that Thomas Kingston's death had nothing to do with Prince William not being able to attend his godfather's funeral today.
That's right. So Thomas Kingston, not necessarily a very well-known figure, but certainly sad news for the extended royal family. He's died at the age of 45 unexpectedly. But I think what the palace did want to make clear is that it was not the reason why Prince William decided not to attend this memorial service that was held at Windsor earlier on today for King Constantine of Greece, who you mentioned was his godfather. But they did at the time, and this is a story we've been talking about for most of the day, they did say that he decided not to go for personal reasons. Also, very quickly, they pointed out that the Princess of Wales is still recovering well. And I think this shows the problem for the royal family at the moment. If members of the royal family make any changes to their arrangements when it comes to engagements, there is inevitably going to be speculation and chatter about what exactly it's all about. We know that the Prince and Princess of Wales have wanted to try and keep as much detail about what operation she's had as private as possible. But of course, many people understandably concerned about her. Today did turn out to be quite a big family occasion at Windsor, and it was Queen Camilla who was leading out other members of the family. Among them we also saw Prince Andrew and his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson, and also Princess Anne. But I think it again reminded us of those who were missing on the day. So we understand that King Charles was in central London again today, possibly again having more cancer treatment, and of course the Princess of Wales not there either. She's at home at Windsor. But this is the problem for the royal family at the moment, wanting to try and offer reassurance and calm. But of course, one of the most famous families in the world, there is inevitably always going to be speculation when something like this happens, where Prince William pulls out of an event, what people would say at the last minute.
Rhiannon, while we've got you, a little look ahead to tomorrow. Prince Harry due to find out whether he will be entitled to security when visiting the UK.
Yeah, so this is another, of course, ongoing story when it comes to Prince Harry and his ongoing legal battles. This one relates to a High Court appeal against the Home Office relating to the issue of security. Now, if you followed anything at all to do with Harry and Meghan deciding to leave the UK, you will know that security was one of the major sticking points and one of the things that it seems made them most angry about their decision to step away from royal life. Prince Harry accusing the Home Office of not properly considering the protection that they need when they're here in the UK, saying that his children don't feel safe over here because they don't get the right kind of protection. The Home Office, on the other hand, saying that's not right. They were treated fairly, but at the moment, Prince Harry is no longer part of that specialist group of people that they review their security matters for on a regular basis. And actually, when he comes to the UK, it should be treated on a case-by-case basis. And we will hear the verdict on that tomorrow from Sir Peter Lane, who's a retired High Court judge. We will hear his written statement, and that will be handed down at 10:30 tomorrow morning.
Rhiannon, thank you. Rhiannon Mills, our royal correspondent. So to come here on the UK Tonight, the BBC apologises to the family of the young person involved in the Hugh Edwards scandal over the way it handled their original complaint. Plus, the pub everybody has been talking about, what was once Britain's wonkiest free house, is set to be revived.
trust in politics is at an all-time low. What's going wrong and can we fix it? I'll be hosting a new weekly podcast with two powerhouses of British politics, Labour MP Jess Phillips and Conservative peer Ruth Davidson. We'll work out who's on top and who's having an electoral dysfunction. Available every Friday wherever you get your podcasts.
Breached the road. There is a lot of gas being fired all around us. शांति से इनको समझाओ वरना ये हम लोग It is an absolute carnival kind of atmosphere out here for Prime Minister Modi's decisive victory. These students are defying the prohibitory orders and now they're going to be arrested. We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. What is feared that over 200 people might have died because of these landslides. This on any given day would have been bustling with people, but today it's absolutely deserted. This is one of the most sensitive areas of northeast Delhi where there's been clashes. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. Here's what's coming up. In a moment, we'll hear how a new Sky News investigation into the cost of baby formula has led to a major British retailer lowering their prices.
Susan, how do you go about making sure it's another competitive one today?
Why the Celtic manager has landed in hot water. But first, the BBC has apologised to the family of the young person involved in the Hugh Edwards scandal over the way it handled their complaint. The corporation was accused of not acting quickly enough. Well, our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer is here with me in the studio. Now, people will be well familiar with the Hugh Edwards story. But take us back to the very beginning, because this is what this apology is about, isn't it?
In a way, completely forget about Hugh Edwards in this. The reason this generated so much attention was not really what Hugh Edwards did or didn't do. It was about whether or not the BBC, whether it was in their interest to be looking the other way because one of their highest paid talents, a complaint had been made. If it just disappeared, then maybe that would have been easier for them. Or conversely, whether or not it is just an institution that is full of red tape and is painfully slow at investigating things. And essentially what this review has found today is that it was the latter. But don't forget, these were very serious allegations that did deserve to have some attention given to them quite quickly. This was the parents of a 20-year-old approaching them about one of their big presenters, saying that the individual had been paid £35,000 over the course of a number of years since they were at the age of 17 for sexually explicit photographs. They'd heard nothing from the BBC for 7 weeks. The BBC didn't approach Hugh Edwards for 7 weeks until it actually made the papers, because the parents had been so frustrated because they hadn't got a response. We know Hugh Edwards. He now we've heard nothing from him. We heard via his wife that she actually identified him in the end and said, look, he's struggling mentally and he will in due course respond to this. But there was a review launched afterwards, and what this review has found is just, yes, it was painfully slow. They did make the approaches. They tried to contact people, but they just didn't try hard enough, basically. And while there is an ongoing investigation to see whether or not Hugh Edwards brought the institution into disrepute, that still will be happening. But essentially, when it comes to what the BBC acted on, what they did, they were just slow.
OK. And does anything happen about that, or is it just a lesson learned? They're
saying the protocols were all in place, the steps are there, and they just know that next time they have to escalate it to senior management more quickly. OK,
Katie, thank you. Katie Spencer, our arts and entertainment correspondent. Next tonight, it's been described as Britain's wonkiest pub, the iconic Crooked House near Dudley in the West Midlands. Well, now the owners have been ordered to rebuild the premises exactly as it was after it was demolished following a fire. Sky's Becky Cotterill takes up the story.
Beloved because of its unusual slanting structure, Britain's wonkiest pub was not just a tourist attraction, it was also part of the Black Country's heritage. But the Crooked House in Dudley was gutted in a suspected arson attack last summer after being sold to new owners. And 48 hours later, it was demolished without permission from the council. The backlash from distraught locals prompted a national outcry. Now the owners have been ordered to give the community back its tilting treasure.
I just can't express my feelings today. Excitement. I'm so excited about it all. I can't believe. I couldn't believe what happened to it. I couldn't believe that day when the devastation affected all of us.
Former employee John Hutchinson was delighted when he heard the news.
And there's been a few tears shed this morning, and it's really nice to be back here on site again, knowing that this news has come out and is out in the open. I'm looking forward to going in and pulling a pint and serving the rest of the team their first drink in the pub.
The councillor have said the pub must be built back to what it was before the fire within 3 years. The owners now have 30 days to appeal that decision. Recreating the 260-year-old building will be costly, especially imitating its signature slant, which was originally caused by disruption from mining. West Midlands Mayor credits campaigners and the council's efforts to resurrect the pub.
They've taken great legal advice, they've been absolutely certain, and they've been determined, partly because there has been such a sort of outcry from local residents for whom this has been a sort of attack on their heritage, their history, and that's why the local authorities responded.
Investigations are continuing into the fire. 6 people have been arrested and released on bail, but locals are willing to be patient to get back their off-balance boozer. Becky Cotterill, Sky News, Dudley.
The COVID inquiry heard stark personal stories today in Cardiff from those who lost loved ones during the pandemic. There will be 3 weeks of hearings there, but some are angry that Wales hasn't ordered its own review into decision-making at the time. Karen and Paul Jones were at the inquiry. They lost their 25-year-old daughter, Lauren, to COVID in December 2020.
Paul had to take her to the hospital. We thought she'd just been in and out, in a few hours. But unfortunately, she never walked back out to the hospital. She was admitted to Royal Glamorgan. We had a phone call with Paul dead because he was sitting in the car outside the A&E waiting for it to come home. And they told us that she was very ill and they would admitted her to the ward. It's a living nightmare every day. Every second and every minute and every hour is... I miss her all over again. Yeah.
There is no other word to describe it other than horrific, and it's how our lives are, really. So we got the empty seat in the house because Lauren lived with us at home, and yeah, that empty seat in the house every day, is just really difficult to live with,
Still to come on the UK tonight, plans to mark the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings are unveiled in Portsmouth. And we'll discuss the Saltburn craze as the owner of the grand estate that features in the film shares his frustration after dozens of fans turn up for a closer look. Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. Now, the supermarket chain Iceland has decided to cut the cost of baby formula. It comes after Sky News investigated the impact of soaring prices on families who are struggling to cope with the cost of living. The boss of Iceland says there was a moral obligation to take action. But will other retailers now follow suit? Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by Dr. Erin Williams, co-founder and director of the independent charity Feed. Dr. Williams, really good to see you this evening. First of all, your reaction to this move by Iceland?
Well, Feed are absolutely delighted to hear of yet another good news story coming off the back of our Formula for Change campaign with Metro. And I mean, props to Richard Walker and his team. They really have done a great job here by resulting in a really big decrease in the price of formula, so making it accessible for UK families.
This has opened the door, hopefully, for other retailers to follow suit. Is that your hope? What have you been hearing from, other big retailers? Because I know that you're following this closely.
Well, that's exactly what we would like to see. If Nestle can come to this agreement with Iceland, then surely they're able to come to a similar agreement with the rest of the retailers. So far, we haven't heard anything, but I'm hoping that they will follow suit, because we know Asda and Tesco have passed on similar price changes to their customers in the past, so we hope they'll act quickly to do the same this time.
I thought Iceland said, or the boss of Iceland said, was interesting. It's a moral obligation, because there's a wider question here, isn't there? That baby formula, yes, is produced by businesses, and of course the nature of business, to thrive, to survive, there has to be competition. But you do wonder, with such a basic life essential for a baby, for families, why there has to be competition on price, why there is no industry standard price, whether it's from those that produce it or retailers. Why do you think that is?
Well, that's a great question, Sarah-Jane, and I wish I knew the answer. And the Competition and Markets Authority are investigating the formula industry at the moment, so maybe they'll be able to tell us a wee bit more. But I think what we can learn from this new news today is that there's actually quite a bit of wiggle room there. You know, we're talking about £1.80, £1.90 price drop, and there's now a 125% price difference between the least expensive and the most expensive formula. So there is obviously a lot there within the price and for manufacturers and retailers to work with.
Erin, how do you keep up the pressure? Because often when consumers want to make a change, they vote with a pound in their pocket, don't they? If they want to affect change, they will go elsewhere. But you can't with baby formula. You need baby formula. And if everyone is priced the same, how do you keep the pressure up? How, as parents, when you're looking at this going, this isn't right, how do you keep up the pressure on companies and the government?
Well, what we would really like to see is a national public health campaign to tell parents that all infant formulas are nutritionally equivalent. So the least expensive brand is just as good for your baby as the most expensive brand. But we know families, parents are hesitant to switch brands because there's this perception that somehow if you're paying more, you're getting a better quality product. And that's just not true of infant formula. So I would like to see, you know, that information being made available to families so that they can vote with their feet and they can feel confident that if they choose the least expensive option or the less expensive options, that they're in no way putting their babies at risk or their babies aren't missing out in any way.
Yeah. I mean, Erin, it's incredible that this story has come out into the public domain and we're talking so much more about it. Our national correspondent, Tom Parmenter, started talking about this at the start of last year, and the problem at that time was parents just didn't talk about it. They were ashamed that they couldn't feed their baby, and you will be dealing with these families day in, day out. Are those families talking about it more and saying, you know, this is unacceptable? Or is there still the stigma there? Because, of course, that's part of keeping the pressure up as well, isn't it? People coming forward and saying, this is happening to my family, something has to be done.
Exactly. It's definitely, you know, Tom and Emily's reporting on this has been brilliant and really making it a common topic of conversation. And the team at Metro as well have done a great job in supporting our campaigning around the issue. And parents are just fed up now that there is more awareness of the difference in prices and the fact that there is wiggle room within that pricing. I think we're going to see that families just aren't prepared to put up with it anymore. And our current petition is at almost 100,000 signatures. So that just goes to show you how many families actually feel strongly that formula should be affordable and accessible. And in terms of the stigma, I think making sure that women have got the information about formula antenatally. You know, current regulations prevent midwives and healthcare visitors bringing up the topic of formula feeding unless the mum herself raises it. And it means that if they do start breastfeeding, then they have to go to formula. They've got absolutely, you know, no information. So we need to make sure that women are empowered with that information and that formula is affordable and accessible for everybody that needs it.
So much more to be done. Dr. Erin Williams, thank you. We will talk again, no doubt. That Competition and Markets Authority investigation due to conclude in September, is that right?
Yes, hopefully we'll see something at the end of the summer.
Great stuff. We will talk again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next tonight, it has been announced Portsmouth will host the UK's D-Day anniversary commemorations this year. This June will mark 80 years since the landings, and the event is set to include veterans who are now all aged over 90, alongside current members of the armed forces. Today, 2 British veterans were presented with plaques to add their names to a commemorative wall honouring those who took part in the battle. Our correspondent Alex Porter has been speaking to them.
When the time came for the paratroops to bail out, only a very small percentage of the troop carriers had been lost.
It was the largest invasion ever assembled. Around 160,000 Allied forces landed in Nazi-occupied France. It was the beginning of the end of World War II. Now 13 D-Day veterans from the UK and Allied countries are being added to the Normandy Memorial Wall in Portsmouth, including Stan Ford and John Roberts. Both men have been presented with their named bricks. John served in the Royal Navy, and on the 6th of June 1944, his ship was the front of the D-Day convoy.
The army got ashore quite relatively easy to begin with, and it was an hour or two before the Germans really woke up. We actually fired, I think, in the first hour, 150 rounds of our 4.7-inch guns. And for a 20-year-old, it was exciting.
But now, war is sadly not a thing of the past.
Well, I'm very depressed that I think World War I and II, they were going to be the wars to end all wars. And here we are now with 2 or 3 or 4 wars going on.
The importance of marking D-Day was brought to life by Michael Caine's final movie, The Great Escaper, which tells the true story of a Royal Navy veteran who snuck away from his care home to attend the 70th D-Day celebrations in Normandy. John Roberts played an extra in the film. He and Michael Caine shared stories about their service in Korea. In just 3 months' time, Portsmouth will host the UK's national commemorations for the 80th anniversary of D-Day. The number of surviving D-Day veterans may be dwindling, but their legacy continues to be remembered around the world. Alice Porter, Sky News.
Next, we're going to talk about what has been described as the Saltburn effect. There's been an influx of fans and influencers keen to get a closer look at the stately home where the film was made. One TikToker, Erin Williams, went viral with more than 3 million views when she posted a video showing the location of Drayton House, which has a public footpath going through the estate from which you can see the house in the film. Well, there it is. Erin joins me now, along with Steve Hare, assistant manager at the local pub, the Snooty Fox, where some of the cast were spending time during filming. Good evening to you both. Thank you for joining us on the UK Tonight. Erin, I'll start with you. Born and bred in Northants. Were you aware of the estate before Saltburn?
No, not at all. I mean, as a business owner in Northamptonshire, I couldn't help but once I watched the film and realised that, it was filmed not very far away from me, I hopped in my car and I went along and had a look. And that's where I made my TikToks that then subsequently went viral. So no, I didn't know about it before.
Yeah, 3 million views and counting, because you shot a TikTok basically showing people how to find it if, they want to go and look at some of the locations where the film was made. And you start at the local pub, which is always a good place to start when you're touring any area of the beautiful UK countryside. And that local pub is the Snooty Fox, where we find Stephen. Talk to me about the interest in the local area since the release of Saltburn.
Well, it's been fantastic. The great start to 2024. We always believe that January is going to be a quiet time for hospitality, but new faces kept on coming into the pub, start chatting to them, and they're all here because of the Saltburn effect, as you call it. So they've watched the TikTok video, they want to know where the house is, and they all pop into the pub, and then they see, actually, we really like the pub as well. So great pub, great people. It's been great for us, a great start to the year.
Yeah, how good's Rhiann's video? Do you get anyone coming back saying, I couldn't find it, I couldn't quite follow the video?
Oh, well, once you're here, it is quite easy to find it. There's a road that leads straight down to it, but I think you gave very good directions there, Rhiann.
Thank you.
Especially where the pub was as well. That was brilliant.
Yeah, done wonders for your trade with 3 million views converting into a few extra visitors. Rhian, there's a public footpath that goes through the estate, and what I was amazed at, you know, I've seen the film and marvelled at how gorgeous that house is. It's so gothic, not just the inside of the house, but the surrounding grounds as well. It's not open to the public, so, you know, you stuck to the public footpath, but apparently the owner of the estate is saying that a few people haven't done that. They've got in for a closer look, which isn't on, right?
Yeah, I mean, whatever the circumstances, people shouldn't be straying from the public footpath, nor drop litter. I mean, they should generally be good countryside citizens. And, you know, there's no reason to stray from the public footpath, because you can see from the TikTok they're showing, you can see the house, you can get a very good glimpse, you can take some photographs, and really you should just respect people's privacy. So it was never my intention, you know, when I made that, I did not think for a minute, if I'm honest, that it would get, you know, collectively the 2 videos I did got sort of, you know, been viewed about 5.6 million times, and it all happened very, very quickly. And I didn't have many followers on TikTok at the time, so I just didn't think it would go viral. But it is great to see such a hidden corner of our beautiful county in such a major film like Saltburn.
OK, Stephen, spill the tea on the celebs, because of course you've got famous names in that film. Barry Keoghan, now a household name for one scene in particular, in fact 2 or 3 scenes in particular, let's face it. Rosamund Pike, who we saw there, I understand she popped in for a game of darts and a Sunday roast.
Yeah, the cast and crew enjoyed the pub. They really had a good time here. And, you know, we welcomed them, we embraced them all, and they loved what we do here. Great food, great drinks, and they wanted to come again. So, yeah, they got part of, you know, became part of the community, playing darts with the locals. So it was great to see that, and it was a really good start for us, because that was our opening year when they filmed the actual film. And so, you know, yes, we've had celebrities here, but, you know, there's nothing to actually, you know, as juicy secrets to talk about. It was just they enjoyed what we do here, great food, and you know, we didn't expect that 2 years later we'll still have this influx of the Saltburn effect happening. But yeah, you know, we're going to embrace it. But like Rhian said, please have respect for the village and the residents of Drayton House.
Well, like you said, a great boost for your business and tourism in the local area. I know you put on a quiz as well for the cast. Who won that? My money's on Richard E. Grant.
Well, there was quite a few movie questions I threw in there. I was the master for that quiz. I thought because it's a movie crew, and a couple of quotes from Widnail and I that I put in there, so the guest of the film, he didn't actually get them right, which he was very disappointed with. But no, they were all great sports and great to have them here.
Oh, it would have been rude not to sneak a bit of Widnail and I in there. Stephen Hyare and Erin Williams, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, coming up on the UK Tonight, we'll have the sport for you. The Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers has been speaking for the first time after he was criticised for comments he made to a female journalist.
What we're doing right now is we are going out to some of the remotest parts of the Svalbard archipelago where polar bear mums are in their den still tucked in with their still growing cubs, and we're setting up remote camera systems. We're setting up both high definition video systems and then simpler trail cam systems, and we're trying to get information on when polar bears come out of their dens, what they do when they're there, and what condition they're in. When polar bears are born sometime around the first of the year, they're about the size of a human fist, or a stick of butter is another way to look at it. They are blind and hairless. They need that protection of the den, and they need their mother's really fat, rich milk so they can grow quickly and get to the point where here pretty soon, within the next couple of weeks, they'll start to emerge from their dens. And that mom is going to make her way back down to the sea ice where she can eat. Here in Svalbard, we've seen average winter temperatures increase as much as 7 degrees C, and that is dramatic. In places I've spent most of my career, I've seen sea ice go from being close to shore, where I could see it within a few miles in a given year, to now that same place, that same ice is 400 to 500 miles offshore. You're talking about dramatic change, dramatic habitat loss across the Arctic. One of the most important parts of a polar bear's life is that maternal denning period. It's that critical time when these young cubs are at their most vulnerable. So we need to learn as much about what they require from us in terms of a lack of disturbance, in terms of the habitat that they need to be successful there. If we don't have cubs coming into the population, we're not going to have polar bears around very long. So we really need to protect the mums and cubs. Every morning here from on out, we get up pretty early, check the weather. And if it's a go, which today is a classic day of maybe, we will load up with the search and rescue helicopter team here, and we will head out to a den site to deploy cameras. It's an all-day operation. When we get back, we have to get the gear set up for the next day's deployment. And I should mention, we wouldn't be here at all without our partners at Norwegian Polar Institute and our partners at San Diego Zoo, who work closely with us on this project.
Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. We're going to get up to date on the sport now. Teddy is here. And we're talking about Brendan Rodgers, the Celtic manager. And he's been in a bit of hot water over the last 48 hours for some comments he made to a female reporter. For those who might not be aware of what happened, put us in the picture.
Well, it stems from a match at Fir Park, Motherwell on Sunday. Motherwell actually leading for a long time. Celtic in the title race, now playing catch-up to Rangers, who under Philippe Clement have come from nowhere. Actually turned it around in dramatic style in stoppage time. But then after the match, he was speaking to BBC Scotland reporter Jane Lewis, and insinuating that the narrative, particularly in the Scottish press, was against Celtic. Says the story's already been written about this group. We will write our own story. She then pressed him on what that was about, but he curtailed the interview pretty quickly, walked off, said, done, good girl, well done. We'll get to what she's had to say in due course, but campaigners for Women Scotland have said that it's casual sexism, that he owes Jane Lewis, the reporter, an apology. But Brendan Rodgers actually has come out in his latest press conference and addressed the issue today.
Since I've been up here, and I think any journalist or reporter or anyone in media, I've always based my life on relationships. So I've always offered a warmth, a respect, being courteous, and offering time to people, and that will never ever change.
OK, well, it's important to hear both sides of the stories. There's something quite uncomfortable about being called a good girl in a professional setting or a working environment.
And you've been there in sport as well.
Yeah, I have indeed. So what has the woman at the centre of this story had to say? Because that's just as important.
Yeah, Jane Lewis issued a brief statement regarding her interview, saying clearly the interview on Sunday has become a talking point. I don't believe there was any offence meant by Brendan Rodgers, and for my part, there was none taken. So that's Jane Lewis. But as we were talking about as well, there's going to be a context there of her having to work with Rodgers, and hopefully they can continue to do so in good fashion.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, to be called a good girl in a working environment just probably isn't the thing to say. Teddy, what else is happening in sport?
We'll see if Brendan adjusts that. It was a big night of FA Cup action. Sarah-Jane will tell you about that in just a second.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Now this signifies a corner, okay? I don't want this and I don't want that. I need the hand up here, okay? That is contested.
It's school on a Sunday, but nobody's complaining because the lesson is the laws of the game and the classroom is Villa Park. The FA wants to find 1,000 new black, Asian and mixed heritage referees from different communities around the country. It's part of the reflective and representative campaign.
We want to increase the pool of referees from these communities at a grassroots level, with the hope that in the future that these individuals can then go through the refereeing progression pathway and then eventually referee within the Women's Super League and in the Premier League. Historically, maybe the interest wasn't there, but actually we haven't probably done enough to actually showcase what refereeing is about.
You're going to go there and blow the whistle and give a direct free kick.
A lot of challenges that people talked about, the themes were, referee courses were too expensive, and that's why we've employed a bursary scheme as part of this campaign.
You two go.
Going into grassroots football and going into it as a referee, with all the other challenges that I have, the other added challenge will be the discrimination angle.
You need to blow the whistle and put your hand like this. It's got to be like this on every single cone.
The achievements of Sam Allison, Rebecca Welsh and Sunny Singill have highlighted the importance of role models and mentors within refereeing, with new refs coming through having people to aspire to. The organisation BAMREF was set up to increase levels of representation in refereeing, and were in attendance on the day.
Straight arm out.
Well, I've never seen this before. It's absolutely amazing to be.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Quick look at the weather before we go.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Unsettled for the next few days, outbreaks of rain spreading from the west. Before then, most places fine this evening. There'll be a stiff wind in the south.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.